to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. I am Ansar Stianes. With the end of direct military rule in Burma, human rights defenders are today able to celebrate Human Rights Day openly. For over 2 decades, this day was marked in secret, away from the brutal crackdowns of the military rulers. But Burma is one of only a handful of positive changes amongst worsening human rights records in many other Asian countries. In today's program, we will observe Human Rights Day by touching on some of the issues that the HRC has focused on over the last year. The new government in Burma has promised the international community that they will release all political prisoners, to end the civil war, and to continue the peace process with dialogue. With us in the studio, we have Burmese human rights defender Min Lin U. Welcome to the HRC.
Yeah, thank you.
How does it feel that you are now able to celebrate Human Rights Day openly in Burma?
Yeah, last 2 decades ago, and then we cannot have openly in Human Rights Day in Burma, and then but we make some ceremony. It held secretly in some of the society around the Burmese people and human rights activists. This year, Burma Human Rights Day will held openly, and we're happy to hear like this.
What is the situation of human rights in Burma today compared to the past?
Oh yeah, it's first I would like to say new government is nearly 3 years, and then so many amnesty order will coming out. So many political prisoners released. HRC also welcome this message. And then new government and president, he promised end of this year all of the political prisoners will release. And then so this is a good thing. And other thing is about the child soldier. And then last 20 years they refuse no child soldier in Burmese army. Now they accept 175 children, child soldier return to the parents. It's a welcome message for human rights. Yeah.
So in your opinion, what are the most urgent human rights issues in Burma today?
Oh yeah, now in Burma today, we need some new government need to achieve 3 basic freedom. Freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and also freedom of association. This is urgent we need. And then because of 2008 Constitution gave a lot of rights, citizen rights and legal rights, so many rights, so on. But practically, we cannot get some of the rights. Yeah, it's now urgent we need.
The Indian criminal justice mechanism is an excellent example of the wide gap that exists in many Asian countries between the law protecting human rights and its practice. The Indian constitution has elaborate mechanisms for protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Despite so many legal guarantees of protection, life remains vulnerable, especially in areas where special security laws are enforced, permitting excessive use of lethal force. In Manipur in northeast India, police and armed forces often commit arbitrary killings in the name of ensuring national security. Left behind are thousands of widows and fatherless children. Memcha is one such young widow whose idea of a security completely changed after her husband was randomly and brutally killed by security forces.
Adubo ay nupa maran suklay na ay nupa si siri have ay percibi de siri ba mi puna maxing police na mi hala me khola me have puna maxing si hali ba mi sing ji maran suklay ra mo na khali maram di kay have da ay ngonda thing na rapani na ay nupa maran suklay na ay sak chamin na raga yum sida have di isa mari ga ay nuai na awan nungai gi wari chamin na raga adu sina leiram ba ay nupa do mafam dre gi putu aga thongan khok da sat pa kan da ay nupa siri hera amina.
This year, Indonesia is in its 15th year of reform since the fall of the Suharto dictatorship. But the HRC notes that despite the changes that have taken place since 1998, much remains ignored by the government, hampering Indonesia's move towards full democracy. Reports of police torture and extrajudicial killings have been frequent during these reform years, including in 2013, which indicates the need for Indonesia to put more efforts into police reform. The HRC calls for the establishment of an independent mechanism to investigate police misconduct, as well as substantial changes in police recruitment and promotion procedures. A comprehensive reform of the judiciary is also needed, as power and money regularly intervene in legal proceedings, as evidenced by the arrest of a number of judges this year. The HRC also notes with concern that liberties in Indonesia are still restricted in some areas. Peaceful protests in Papua are still subject to forced dispersal, and religious minorities are discriminated against. This year, Indonesia also enacted a law on mass organization, which provoked criticism for violating freedom of expression. The message from Cambodia on this Human Rights Day is that the struggle in the coming year will be for social justice. We spoke with Swan Bunsak of Cambodian Human Rights Action Committee.
Currently, the Cambodian civil society organization is preparing for the celebration of Human Rights Day in this year, 2013. And the main themes that we are going to make in this year is that we call "We are all together working for the promotion and protection of social justice." This is the main theme of our Human Rights Day celebration in this year. And there are about 200 organizations working together for this celebration in this year from Cambodia.
The Rule of Law Committee of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, in a statement, condemned the recent extrajudicial killings of 4 persons by the police and Special Task Force. These killings followed the alleged murder of a policeman and his wife. It appears that the government has approved a policy of the administrative disposal of persons, which makes courts an irrelevant factor in deciding on punishment, including the use of the death sentence. There were also acts of violence by unknown persons in the north, where several opposition politicians were attacked. There were no credible inquiries into any of these attacks. Critics believe that the government was behind these attacks. The Asian Human Rights Commission stated that the problem to worry about on the Human Rights Day in Sri Lanka is that the government has taken executive control of everything and has removed any space for the judiciary and the rule of law. The use of extrajudicial violence has now become the method of ruling the country. The worst kind of human rights abuses in Pakistan are committed within the criminal justice system itself, which is deeply flawed, backlogged, and corrupt. The system is not independent, and investigators and prosecutors lack the resources, training, and security to bring about successful prosecutions. In each instance that the criminal justice system is circumvented, it grows weaker and more irrelevant, and a culture of impunity thrives. The new government showed its deep contempt for human rights immediately after assuming power by merging the Ministry of Human Rights with the Ministry of Law and Justice. The government has enacted 2 draconian laws by passing the parliament. The ordinances give unlimited powers to the law enforcement agencies to shoot suspects on sight, search houses without a warrant, confiscate property, and tap phone calls. The following statistics give a clear idea of the worsening human rights situation in Pakistan. During the 2013, 56 women were killed in Pakistan for giving birth to a girl rather than a boy. 350 women and 270 men were murdered in so-called honor killings. More than 2,000 people were tortured by state security officers. Around 2.2 million people, mostly women and children, were trapped in slavery. 450 persons were disappeared in Balochistan after their arrest by the Frontier Corps and other security forces, whereas 35 people were disappeared from Sindh province and 110 from KPK province. As reported in a previous episode, the Nepal elections were conducted successfully. The vote count for first past the post and the proportional representation system has been completed, where the Nepali Congress is in the lead, followed by the CPN-UML and the UCPN Maoists. The Election Commission has called for the parties to submit names of their candidates under the proportional representation within a week. HRC is concerned that very few women and Dalit candidates won in the second Constituent Assembly election. The Nepali Congress, the largest party, have not nominated a single candidate from the Dalit community, although it represents over 13% of Nepal's population. The HRC worried that less representation from women and Dalit community will jeopardize their issues in the new constitution writing process. Caste and gender-based discrimination and violence are rife across Nepal. We spoke earlier with Durga Sop, chairperson of the feminist Dalit organization, and Padam Sundas, the executive chairperson of Samata Foundation.
The human rights, the issue of Dalit in Nepal, particularly Dalit women, human rights violence is increasing rather than decreasing, because the issue, the violence against Dalit women, issue has been increasing day by day due to the continue transitional phase, and due to strong legislation in favor of Dalit and Dalit women, and whatever we have a legislation and policy, it has not been enforcement at practice. One thing, another, the violence, particularly domestic violence cases being increased among the Dalit women, and as well as Dalit women, the case of rape and other serious violence case has been increasing in 2013.
Very less people were just got the ticket, and unfortunately, out of them also only 2 people were elected in the Constitution Assembly. Seeing all the scenario of this Constitution Assembly result, the most of the orthodox parties are the so-called so-called agitatist parties. They were elected and they got the victory, and that's why most of the Dalit people are very very eager to know whether the bills which were passed, which were not written but passed by the Constitution will be taken in this new Constitution or not.
World Human Rights Day is going to be celebrated in Bangladesh amidst bloody political violence. The country and its democracy are aflame in bans and blockades. The power-greedy politicians of the ruling and opposition parties are waging war against each other prior to the 10th parliamentary election. Buses are being burned, trains are getting derailed as the protesters are removing the faceplates of the railways. Crude bombs, petrol bombs are weapons of both feuding political groups. The police and paramilitary forces, including the border guards, have started massive crackdown against the pro-opposition supporters and leaders. Every day, deaths of ordinary citizens are occurring across the country. Hundreds of innocent people, including women and children, have already been victims in the ongoing violence. Many have been injured, whereas leaders and activists have been detained. People are being arrested en masse every day. The election is scheduled for January 5, 2014. The entire civil, military, and police administrations are designed and set so that Sheikh Hasina retains power in a partisan farcical election. All other opposition parties have withdrawn from the election because of the lack of a level playing field. The opposition parties demanded Sheikh Hasina to step down from the office to create an atmosphere for a credible election. While this power struggle is going on, human dignity is severely undermined and humiliated. The HRC has requested the United Nations to intervene urgently to save the lives, livelihoods, and liberties of ordinary people in Bangladesh. In the Philippines, despite unabated torture, killings, disappearances, and reprisals on human rights and political activists, victims continue to resist by attempting to assert and protect their dignity. In Mindanao, indigenous people whose ancestral lands are arbitrarily taken away by private firms in collusion with the government are demanding what is theirs. Here is Loreto Cambo, one of the indigenous leaders in Davao del Sur, Mindanao.
Yang tinuod nagplim magin sa makatlungod nga isig kabilumad. Nang ano mainana man na noon nga NPA naman noon eh. Nga akong pamilya murag kaurat-hurat na ba. Murag ang amo akong lihok murag minti mi mo uknom kay mo lagi na kuan gud mi ginasuno na gud mi. Pero inaot lang po doon sa mi nga inana ra mo ko mo kuan jud. Nga ko yung panawagan ko sa kauban nga lumad, dili lang pud ka maghurat-hurat. Kita iguro mo ta nag-claim sa tong katungod.